first thing on the agenda is we have an update from our friends and partners at Sinclair Community College. And I see we have the official head honcho here. Thank you,
Commissioner. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you, Commissioners. Thank you for having us from Sinclair here with you this morning. What a great day it is. What a beautiful morning. And what great progress we're making and helping more students earn more education faster for less money, and having the classes and the programs that our students are completing and programs that are really aligned to our local economy. So thanks for having us this morning. Mike Gagan, one of my bosses, is here from the trustees, and you know Mike well. He is one of our lead trustees. He is chair of one of the primary committees of the board. He just helped us with a strategic retreat last week as we forge the path forward, as we are way post-COVID now, and we're getting into like, well, what will we be when we grow up? At 138 years this year, we are looking to grow up pretty soon, and so yay. Also behind me is former chair. I always call him chair because he's a former chair of the Sinclair board. He's not on the Sinclair board at this time, but Barney Wright. And so he is retired from the Sinclair board, but shout out to Barney Wright. And two senior administrators, Madeline Isley, senior vice president, and senior vice president Melissa Toll are with us here, and other staff. You are going to hear from Madeline here in just a second, and she is going to walk you through some of the success points and key performance indicators of Sinclair in Mason and in Warren County and in the region. And so she's going to do that here promptly in about 15 seconds. I just want to say one more time, thank you so much for your support. What a great group you are, and what a great part of the world to be in with you today. Thank you. Madeline?
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Madeline Isaac, so great to see you all again this morning. And a pleasure, as always, to give you our annual update. You've seen some of these slides before. Just to remind you, of course, that Sinclair started as a night school of the Dayton YMCA in 1887, and David Sinclair uttered the words, "Find the need and endeavor to meet it," and that is indeed the driving principle behind everything that Sinclair does. What that means, we are now in our 138th year of operating as a job training and educational institution, and our three strategic priorities are alignment, growth, and equity. Just a quick overview of where Sinclair is writ large in terms of enrollment. Very, very, very steady over the last decade or so. This in spite of the fact that other institutions are finding less enrollment. So we're happy to be bucking that trend. You can see, again, Warren County and Greene County are neck and neck for second and third place there in terms of the residents who attend Sinclair. Now, let's just focus on Warren County student success rates. First of all, we know that Warren County is already a very highly educated county, the most highly educated county in Southwest Ohio, but that doesn't mean that students aren't in need of further education and training. We're proud to report that Sinclair is #2 in second only to the University of Cincinnati in terms of the number of Warren County residents who choose to enroll. And again, Warren County total college enrollment in two-year colleges continues to go up, and Sinclair continues to capture a larger percentage of that. This is a benchmark that we use in terms of market penetration, and Warren County residents are above the average in terms of a national benchmark. When we look at the enrollments at Sinclair compared to just overall population growth, we can see that they are growing at higher rates. Sinclair enrollments are growing at higher rates than population growth. And that is largely because students are finding that there are important programs for them at the Mason campus, and you can see them listed on this slide. Happy to report that Warren County residents continue to earn credentials, and at your place is a very quick overview that I shared with Warren County superintendents at the end of the school year. You see the date there was early June. I was invited by Tom Isaacs to do that, and the bottom half of the page shows you specifically the number of degrees and credentials that were earned by Warren County residents. When we look at especially, and I would point your attention to the last couple of bullets there. CCP, you recall, College Credit Plus is where students earn both high school credits and college credits at the same time. And of course, that means an incredible savings for those families in terms of tuition, because the tuition is covered by the school districts. You'll see that just this past May, 7 Warren County resident students earned their associate degrees even before they earned their high school diplomas. So again, that really gives them a leg up as they either go straight into a job or they decide to go on perhaps and transfer to university. On that note, we've got very steady growth in Warren County students attending Sinclair and then going on to transfer. It just makes it so much more affordable, again, for those families. Now, just a few quick updates on some fun things that have been happening in the last year at the Sinclair Mason campus. This is a great partnership with MON. It's actually safety training, and you can see the students there. These are new employees at MON who wear headsets and learn how to lift and move without risk to themselves or to their work environment. And that's happening every 2 weeks, and that was brokered through our Sinclair Customized Training and Workforce Development Programs. Jen Maynard heads that. And Chris Hubbard, the director of our Sinclair Mason campus, is actually the brains behind the virtual reality. Can I describe? I should say, bringing the virtual reality to Sinclair Mason campus. Do you mind if I describe you as a little bit of a tech geek nerd? Okay, all right, that's, as long as that's fair. Anyway, that's been a fun thing. The other thing that Jen has been very, very deeply involved in leading, this last year we just completed a pilot program, partnership with the Warren County Educational Service Center, what we call the Pre-Professional Academy. So this was specifically targeted for the at-risk high school students at the Lazarus School, at the Greater Ohio Virtual School, and some other locations, to give them introduction to the major industries of Warren County: IT, manufacturing, travel and tourism, and healthcare, and also give them the opportunity to earn credentials, which they can also use for graduation credits. It was so successful that, gosh, many months even before it wrapped up, Tom Isaacs was already bugging us. Okay, how can we start planning for the next one, right, Jen? And that absolutely could not have been done without the incredible partnership of all of these many employers that you see represented on this slide there. There's a little bit of an update on the top part of your one-pager as well. That's been so meaningful. You'll see that students actually earned the credentials that are listed on the left side of the slide there. The students, a few of the students shared some reflections, and one of the, I thought one of the most poignant ones was a particular student realized when you are in the workplace, you have to work with other people and you have to learn how to get along. And isn't that so true in life? But how awesome that these kids got that opportunity to learn that in a safe environment where they were also exposed to the many job opportunities here in our home county. And that's really the point of this program, is one of the points is to keep them here as much as we can, because we need them. And then finally, really excited about a partnership with the Warren County Career Center. They were finding that students in the southeast corner of the county were having a hard time, those who are interested in healthcare fields, having a hard time making it all the way to the Green Tree Academy adjacent to Atrium Medical Center. So Joel asked if we might be able to share our STNA lab with them, and again, specifically the Little Miami District and the Kings District. Those students, there was a real interest, but the transportation was just too difficult for them. So we now have a signed agreement, and that is just needs to be scheduled, and it's going to be exciting to see those young people on our campus. And here we are, that's Building B, named for Chair Wright. I lovingly call it the barn. Thanks, Barney. I want to finish up this section with this is a 1-minute ad that was developed in partnership with WKRC, specifically around their coverage of the tennis tournament. So if you don't mind, I'm going to play.
Just like the perfect serve, Sinclair Community College in Mason is all about precision and excellence. With over 25 degree and certificate programs and more than 80 fully online programs, Sinclair and Mason ensures students gain the vital skills they need for a successful career or to seamlessly transfer to a 4-year university. As one of the fastest growing regions in Ohio, Warren County's need for higher education is rising, and Sinclair is at the forefront, partnering with the community to meet these demands in advanced manufacturing, IT, and more. Our ambitious plans include expanding degree programs, building more partnerships with universities, and aligning our programs with the needs of Warren County and the greater Cincinnati area. In 2023, Sinclair Community College was named the top college in the country for student success when we received the esteemed Leah Meyer Austin Award from Achieving the Dream. We're a proud partner in the efforts to keep the Cincinnati open in Mason. Sinclair and Mason, where your education and career are always on point.
Looking forward to the tournament. Gosh, less than a week. Okay, just quickly, a couple more slides. Thank you again for your investment in Warren County resident students through the Scholarship Fund. And let me share with you, wow, lots of incredible impact through your aggregate contributions since 2007. Well over 7,000 students have been directly assisted in that process. And just in this last year, that was over 650 students receiving exactly the amount that you contributed to us. So thank you again for that belief and, again, investment in Sinclair. And Samantha Montgomery says it beautifully here. She's an interesting example of why it was so wise for community leaders to bring a community college here. Because Samantha was completely undecided, didn't know what she wanted to do, wasn't sure about college, so she took a few classes at Sinclair Mason and decided, you know what? Well, first of all, she earned a 4.0, so she did pretty well. But now she's decided she wants to pursue a master's in library science with a bachelor's in history or anthropology or something similar. So this is a student who went from, I don't know what I want to do with my life, to now she's got a plan. And hopefully as Samantha goes out in the world and realizes her further education, she then comes back home to bring those skills and those talents to this community. So again, thank you so much. And that is it for me for today. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
We appreciate you all being here, as always, and the work that you all do in the community.
Comments? I mean, number one, yeah, thank you for being here. It's, the thing that comes to my mind is I don't want to take you all for granted. I think the longer you're doing things or in business with someone, a lot of times you almost take it for granted over time. But you are a big deal to this county, and the county appreciates what you all did. The county appreciates Mike and Barney and Shannon when she was in the legislature. I had nothing to do with you all coming here, but it was a big deal. You came, I remember you broke ground right when I first took office, and honestly, it just warms my heart to see almost $1 million in our little scholarship fund. It was Pat South and I sat around, hey, can we do something? And we kind of came up with this, I don't want to call it a backdoor way of helping out, but it was kind of a backdoor way of helping out, and I can't believe it's almost $1 million. So that's just awesome. So I think you're an incredibly important partner in helping define what Warren County is and what we're about, and especially from the economic development standpoint of, hey, what are the needs of the businesses? Let us try to help tailor programs for the real world needs of what employers need. And I think vocational training, specific tasks that you guys teach is just critically important moving forward in today's economic environment of teaching real skills that are marketable and that employers need and you can monetize. So just super, super happy with the way it's going. And I said it at the State of the County, but I want to say it again in a commissioners meeting. Thank you so much for your efforts on the tennis tournament. That is the one global sports asset we have in Ohio, and it was a highly competitive situation, and there were so many different variables that came into play, and if any one of those variables fell apart, the whole deal was dead. And you guys, in your master plan, and being flexible when dealing with some outside entity, you had no idea who they were, and we all know educators have 50-year plans, and this is the way it's going to look, and this is our master plan. For you all to deviate almost on a dime from that, we as a community appreciated, and you were critical. So Dr. Johnson, thank you for really taking one for the team there. And with that, I think we have something for you.
I see a big piece of foam core over
I think it's the epitome of a big check.
Shall we gather for
Please.
customary photo?
So much. Awesome. Well, more students will get more education faster.
You hear, so Candace is back from Greece now.
Oh my
So I'll
God.
get back with you on the 21st, so
Okay.
hopefully it'll be good.
Okay, thank
I
you.
just have no idea.
See y'all.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
See you, Steve.
Barney's World Part Two, the Investment Advisory Board meeting.
Thank you. I really don't have anything new to convey to you. I gave you the end of June reports. I haven't gotten the July ones done yet because I didn't get the statements until yesterday to begin to pull them together. We're gonna see the interest rate on the nominal interest rate on our investment portfolio go up a little bit this month because we've got, well, at the beginning of the month, we had 36 million at Star, and at the end of the month, right now, we've got 120 million, and that's paying 5.4%, and so the interest rate is the highest rate on anything we've got around, and that money will disappear as we distribute it to the school districts and the municipalities. So we'll see a slight bump in the interest rate on the portfolio for July, but other than that, we're very cognizant of the fact that it appears that the Federal Reserve is gonna be lowering rates going forward, and so as we have money to invest, we're tending to invest slightly longer to lock in the rates that are available longer. But obviously, we'll have to balance that against the needs for draws out of the portfolio for things like the tennis tournament. So, I mean, we're just taking care of the business as we go along.
Yeah, that was gonna be my only comment, is hopefully we've extended maturities a little bit.
We're working on that. As interest rates go up, the principal values of the bonds go down. Where we can sell, recover that loss, and reinvest to make more money by the time the bond would otherwise mature, as compared to what we're earning on it. Now we do that. Where we can't, we don't take a loss. We maintain what we're invested in. And so we haven't churned the portfolio, but we're watching for where there are opportunities to sell something at a small enough loss that the increase in the reinvestment rate will cover that loss back before the bond would have matured otherwise.
Awesome.
Excellent. I always appreciate your updates. They're helpful for me, so thank you for doing that extra bit of work.
Glad to do it. If there's anything more I can provide, please let me know. We'll be in touch.
How's it going with your intern? Are you training him? Okay.
He comes with a vast amount of background knowledge that's been very helpful. He's at this point, he's working 1 day a week, and so we're kind of showing him the ropes and where things are and how to find stuff and getting through collection. This collection has been horrible. I mean, just horrible.
Really?
We have been inundated with phone calls and contacts from the public about not getting a bill. We researched the matter and discovered firmly 2 weeks ago that the company that mails our bills out puts them in postal service order, meaning that they're organized in the they're printed in the order that the local postal delivery person is going to deliver them as they drive down the street with their mail to deliver. They're sealed in trays. Each tray has about 350 envelopes in it, and they're shipped from the printer through the postal service, direct unopened to the individual post office where they're going to be delivered. At least 12 of those trays were lost. I'm convinced that more were actually, but they were able to determine from the tracking that they can do that they were lost. You know, you can get informed delivery now from the postal service. They'll tell you what mail's coming to your box that day or going to be delivered to you that day. They can do that because as the mail comes into the post office, they're supposed to film it. And then they use that film to provide that delivery service. We know that 12 of those trays never hit the local post office. The postal service just lost them. And so that's over 4,000 envelopes that weren't delivered. And we just been inundated with phone calls from people that were asking for a duplicate copy of the bill. Unlike, you always get a few of those, but just, it's been overwhelming. It's wearing. I mean, we've been accused of not mailing bills out, of trying to make people be deliberately late. It's
Do
been
we give
hard
any
on staff.
consideration for that relative to late fees?
We have.
Yeah, good.
Basically, on my decision, we're waiving late fees for anything that comes in before the 21st of this month.
That's what Barney and I talked about a week ago, about sending duplicates out on a different colored piece of paper.
We did
And
that.
then waiving anything from a late fee perspective. But it was sort of interesting that I ran into, just anecdotally, a lady in the elevator going up to the third floor for something. And I think what ended up happening is, because she said, hey, I got this bill, I'm coming in, it was a couple days, and notice, I bet you, and I said, well, don't be surprised if you don't get a duplicate bill. So I think some of those trays probably were found, they were sent, they were delivered, they paid, and then they'll end up getting a duplicate bill. Because I said, was this bill of a different color? And she goes, no, it was in a different color. So just be prepared, there may be some of that that occurs.
The duplicate bills had duplicate actually
Okay,
printed on.
all righty,
I
okay.
mean, we have been getting comments that people have gotten a duplicate bill, but it's just, it's been very wearing on the staff. Just to be constantly interrupted while you're trying to process payments by people calling and yelling at you is this.
So under state law, you're permitted to waive, even though the state law mandates that you charge them a late fee of a specific amount, you're able to waive that under state law?
There's no established rule that permits that.
No established rule that permits waiver, but you think you can do it?
Functionally, we can't tell the difference between people who got a bill late and people who got a bill on time through the system that exists currently at the county.
What I mean is, the state law, as I understand it, mandates that they pay on a certain date, and if they're late, you're supposed to charge them a late fee. And in fact, one of the things that is curious about it is that you don't inform people that they're late until the maximum fee is charged, which is after 10 days, I believe. So then is the only time you tell people, so it's kind of nice to know that you can waive it, but I thought under state law you weren't permitted to do that. So,
There's no provision in state law that permits it,
but you are doing it anyway.
but we're doing it.
Okay, good.
We felt like it, we
Sounds
felt
like
like
a
it's the
fair
right
thing to
thing
do
to
to me.
do.
Well, I think it is fair, but I didn't know that the state law allowed you to be that fair.
I believe you're correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
In an open meeting.
Very good.
We've talked enough about it. Thank
I
you,
don't have
Barney.
anything else unless you do.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
Matt, good morning.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Here today to talk with you about some of the tennis documents. These would be coming out of the MOU that was approved last fall, that the commissioners had approved. What the Port Authority has been working on over the past handful of months, has been structuring a lot of the documents to effectuate the transaction between the various parties. The document that would be in front of you today, and there is a resolution that we would request approval on, is particularly one document that the county would be party to, which is would authorize the transfer of funds between the county commissioners to the Port Authority. The Port Authority would be then acting as your agent in the deal to help disperse the money as it's needed for the various construction and improvements out there. The timing of items is the first tranche of money, which would be an amount of $15 million, and that would be consistent of $3 million in ARPA funds and then $12 million, which has been set into the tourism fund already. That would be going out by the end of the year, so that would be going out here in 2024. The remainder of the county's contribution at this point would be $30 million on top of that, because the state has approved their $50 million limit. It reduced the county's contribution by $5 million down to 45. So 15 this year, and then next year in 2025 would be the remaining 30. That would go out in 4 equal quarterly installments of $7.5 million. And I've had conversations with Barney about that, just, you know, to the point we had made earlier about making sure that funds were available, et cetera. So that's the core of the document that's in front of you today for the request of approval. There are a handful of other documents that the Port Authority would be entering into, again, as your agent on this deal. And I'm happy to run through those if you're interested, just kind of a high level, or if not, it's not.
I thought it was just important. I mean, it's a huge deal. I thought it was important that this is, you know, being discussed, and it's also part of those agreements is, even though the city of Mason is technically buying the site from Tennis for Charity, there is an agreement that then the operational control is moved over to the Warren County Port Authority for the 25-year period certain.
That's correct, yes. Yep, that'll be effectuated through a ground lease and a project lease that we would then, we will have the ground lease over the tennis area, the tennis improvements, and then we'll have an agreement with BMOC's entity to basically be the construction agent, the operational agent, you know, to run the day-to-day, and, you know, they're the experts in it, not us, so allowing them to kind of maintain that. But in terms of the control of those assets, it would be the Warren County Port Authority for the duration of the 25 years.
Right, so essentially the city bought it, we technically own it through the ground lease, and then we're hiring BMOC to operate it.
Correct.
And which is the essence of, this is a public project, it's owned by the public and controlled by all of the taxpayers of Warren County.
Correct.
Very good.
What is the, so we, on October 10th last year, we entered into a letter of intent, which is not legally binding. Are we at some point, and I don't know, maybe we did this already, did we enter into a binding contract yet?
Yes.
Well, the binding contract will be, I mean, the Board of Commissioners themselves won't necessarily have to enter into the agreement. That's what the Port Authority would be undertaking on your behalf. What's in front of you today would be binding the transfer of money to the Port Authority for us to then obviously have funds on hand to be able to disperse.
Well, that's why
out.
I'm asking the question. So is today when we're taking that action?
Yes.
For a binding agreement?
Yes.
As opposed to the agreement, wasn't a binding agreement back in October.
Yeah, it was a memorandum of understanding.
Well, yeah, and it said it wasn't binding. So today is our vote to bind the assets. Okay, good.
So I have a resolution authorizing a cooperative agreement with the Warren County Port Authority pursuant to the Memorandum of Understanding dated October 10th, 2023, for purposes of developing the Cincinnati Open tennis tournament.
So moved.
Second, roll call.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Very good.
Any other questions? Thank you.
And finally, we have a work session with Ohio Means Jobs.
Yeah, so this is what I mentioned to you all last week, that Josh and I were at the National Association of Counties annual meeting in Tampa, where it was very, very hot. But while we were there, Josh and on behalf of the county received an award for some really interesting work that this group of folks have been doing through a collaboration with the National Association of Counties. And I just thought that their project is not only did it bring distinction to the county for some of the innovation that they're experimenting with and trying to learn about how to ensure that our young people in the county are connected with bona fide work opportunities for their lifelong success, and making sure that no young person kind of gets left out of the opportunities that are in Warren County. I thought it would be great for you all to learn a little more about this collaboration. The other thing that I would say is that this really stems off some broader work that we did in the community around some assessment that, in fact, Sinclair Community College participated in, our port participated in, the Educational Service Center, in identifying some of the workforce needs in the county. And so at this, following that work, the National Association of Counties learned about it and made us eligible to apply for this collaborative work project. So that's kind of what this stems from, and I will turn it over to Josh to introduce or whomever is going to speak on behalf and share a little more about the project and the learnings around it.
Thank you. I'm Josh Heisel. I'm the Deputy Director of Ohio Beach Jobs.
Tanya Sellers, Deputy Director at Children's Services.
Joel King, Superintendent at Warren County Career Center. My predecessor, Matt Petty, got into this, and when he resigned, I kind of had to jump into it, went straight to Chattanooga to the first meet, and that's how I met Tanya. I'd known Joel from a couple of dinners here and there, but didn't really know him, which kind of brings me to the point of all of it. I have a good definition here of what NACO is, but what it serves to do is to compare barriers nationally. And when you get around and you start talking to someone from Honolulu County or people from Nebraska, New York, we all have the same barriers, we just sort of address them differently. So it was kind of fun to compare our solutions, and what we're doing here in Warren County and what we have been doing is actually pretty impressive to a lot of these other counties. So there was no shortage of praise on us most of the time we were there, basically because we already sort of do work outside of silos here. Our leadership sort of demands that, and it's a good thing. So we fit right in down there. And then really one of the big things NACO does with the Urban Institute is gather data and give us good data back so that we can adjust. Without data, it's kind of hard. My bachelor's in psychology, so I really lean a lot on that. And that's been one of the benefits of working with them. So our mission for our project was economic empowerment. I've used that phrase quite often in my life because I think money does solve a lot of problems. And if people can find their passion, identify that, and live a purpose and make decent money, a lot of the problems that we deal with in our day-to-day services kind of fall off. They have a purpose in life. So we got together on the mission of economic empowerment through work. And those barriers are pretty simple, and they're the same all over the country. Low income, that's where our youth program comes in. It is TANF eligible youth. And transportation, big deal, we always talk about. And that same program can pay for driver's ed, help with the first 3 months of insurance, less than half of a car, all these wonderful benefits that we've been doing on our own and not really in cahoots with anyone else. And Tanya, you want to take this next topic?
Yeah, so where Children's Services came into play is we talked about how we all work together, identify these children. Once they're TANF eligible, they're receiving services through Josh, they're at the Career Center receiving their education through Joel. What purpose do I have, or our agency have in assisting these kids? And what we can do on a Children's Services standpoint is offer preventative services that support the whole family holistically as a whole, connect them with additional supportive services or assistance that's needed. Obviously, this is a voluntary service, but it's going to be offered to families. We're going to provide them education and information on how to obtain services through our agency in a non-punitive form. So I think a lot of people relay Children's Services with, the negative and punitive, but we also offer supportive services and prevention services to families as well. And then ideally, me and Josh have talked, we have a lot of kids in Children's Services custody who are placed outside of our county. And while they might not be eligible to attend the Career Center, how can the two of us work on this population of kids to set them up for being successful into their adulthood?
Yeah. And it's about mitigating barriers, but just to put some numbers with it, we're trying to replicate my adult program. Adult and dislocated worker, you probably hear more about WIOA. The TANF side is sort of a little newer. But in our adult dislocated program, Area 12 had 204 participants last year. 91% success rate, turned 2.3 million in funding into 7.5 million in income. So when you look at the numbers like that, we're trying to replicate that effective program that's been around a really long time and do the same thing with youth. And we think we can do it within the county. We don't need a million nonprofits. We don't need a bunch of help. When we come out of our silos and just do it together, I mean, who better to be doing it? We're really proud of what we did down there. And I'll move forward here a little bit. So the way we collaborate is pretty simple. We find them eligible for TANF. CCMEP, Comprehensive Case Management Employment Program. It's a dumb name, it's a mouthful. We're looking to make that a little cooler, but the jury's out on that. So, and then the Career Center takes them.
Yeah, so as Josh talked about a minute ago, taking that money and transferring that into income. So one of the things we really wanted to make sure was the students getting into a program that was going to provide an in-demand career, a living wage, a high living wage. And so we looked at the demands for this region and our area and then working with our local employers. So we looked a lot at manufacturing is where we started, huge demand and trying to make sure that those students have the skills, but also partnering with those employers. So one of the things that we can do well at the Career Center, Sinclair does this as well, working with those business partners to understand what do they need a graduate to be able to come in and be successful day one in that career. So that's what we've really tried to look at is identifying those students and then how do we help them find that career that's going to help them and their families moving forward.
So when Joel finds the kid that's in manufacturing and finds that kid the work site, because now in Ohio, if you're in training for something, you can do it underage. You can use a saw if you're 16, if you're at the Career Center for Carpentry. So when the work site is identified, we jump back in and have a $14 an hour subsidized paid work experience. So it's a great benefit to the employer. They don't have to pay for it. Try before you buy, for a lack of a better term. And the kid learns from Joel. He learns the trade. From the company, they learn the company culture, and hopefully the warm handoff happens right into adulthood. So that's the plan. So far, we're in the middle of it. So in children's services, as Tanya said, there's barriers that I can't mitigate. There's things I don't understand, or maybe I'm not the best opinion on, and that is why having outside of our silos, having someone like Tanya is so beneficial, because you could be derailed in this journey very easily, and I think if we can mitigate those barriers as they happen, maybe they won't derail. Maybe they stay and follow that purpose, find it. And it's a win-win because we don't need any money. And the barrier mitigation strategy should help not have a bunch of services down the road. So it should save the county down the line.
What would you give as an example of barriers to entering the workforce? What are a couple of barriers? You guys have mentioned barriers a few times. Give us a couple of examples of why are people not getting jobs or young people not getting jobs?
So the big one for us at the Career Center is the driver's license piece. So we'll have students who can complete a program, they're ready to go out to work, they don't have their driver's license, and what we hear is it's too expensive. And then if we try to find a way for them to get the driver's license, then it becomes, I don't have money for a car, I don't have money to pay for the insurance. So it's just kind of that idea of like, how can we get them started earlier? So we're trying to find ways to get them transported to that work site so they can start saving that money up. And that's where Josh came in with some of those TANF funds for us to be able to kind of jumpstart. That's a huge barrier for young students. I think the other piece is, and we have this data and it came up in the meetings you had, there are a lot of students who they're not working anymore for whatever reason. I mean, for me, it was like, I wanted to get my license, I wanted to get a job when I was growing up. Now, for a lot of students, it's just not there. They don't have that desire to go out and get a job and start making money. So I think helping them understand you're setting yourself up for further success in your life. And so I think that's a couple of the barriers that I see on my side.
Absolutely, not to mention just income itself, childcare. Those barriers though, what we're trying to say, I think, is that we found a way to address them all. Just requires a willing participant. The driver's thing's wild. I mean, driver's ed's like $700 now, and that's at Vic's here. We're able to just pay that. Like the mom and dad don't see the bill, and it is a good way for us to get the parents to engage because they get something. They get to not have to pay for that. So barrier-wise, I think those are the big ones. But I've seen some that I don't quite understand, and that's where Tanya really could be helpful. So
Well, you know, one of the reasons why I was really interested in this work is because of my passion around children who enter our children's services system. And many times in the county, we aren't thinking about those children when they become adults and age out of our system. And what you need to know is that 20% of those children in children's services immediately upon aging out end up homeless. And more than half of them have no gainful employment between the time they age out and age 24. And so this is really looking at children, trying to capture them prior to them aging out of the system, supporting the needs and eliminating barriers, and really connecting them with not just the trade experience, but the corporate culture piece, so that they understand what it means to be connected to work and pay your bills. So we're talking about really unique students who are too many of them just get kind of lost in that transition. And by and large, by no fault of their own, they have ended up in the children's services system and have been there for years and years and years. And so this is a way for the Career Center, Children's Services, and Ohio Means Jobs to really focus in on this population and say, how can we ensure a better transition so that those children, as they become adults and young adults, can take care of themselves and their own families, but also be able to provide support to a lot of businesses that are in this community that are looking for good quality labor to allow people to grow with that organization. So it's a really narrow cast project. It's not going to serve, you know, all the young people. It's not intended to serve all the young people. It's really saying, how can we work across these silos to ensure kids, as they become adults, aren't falling through the cracks, because it's those kids that enter children's services often there are not a lot of happy endings once they turn 18 or 21.
And we've had quite a few success stories with work experience within the county. Metro Housing, Maintenance, Children's Services, Judge Kirby have all participated in this and hosted kids that we pay to work there. The county's gotten a couple good employees out of it. One of our great cases still works. She's a deputy clerk over at the probate juvenile now, but I got her at 14 years old and she was a hot mess, and now she's a colleague. So that's something that I've been here long enough to see that. And honestly, you see human beings going through life. It's hard out there, and if you have a purpose, you have a life. So that's really what we're trying to do, but we're just doing it the way we know how, so that we can quantify it and replicate it across all things. So we had to come up with a quick project. We tried to aggregate all of our data because we have all these separate data pots. It wasn't enough, so we decided to do this. So we're basically following someone from a junior at the Career Center all the way through to a year after they've started their job and started their life. So we got 11 youth that were eligible, and that was phase one, find out who's eligible. There are way more than that at the Career Center, and I'll get to our plan to increase that number. And they need to be willing to participate. That's really it, after they're eligible. So phase two, we've already done this. It starts this academic year. Ohio Means Jobs will have a satellite office in the Career Center every Thursday, so that kids that are in the program part of it are going to be able to come by, see Derek or Sarah, chit chat. And as a case manager, the more access you have to the kid, you might just say hi for 10 days in a row, and then the 11th day they finally say, hey, I think I might be eligible. I've also purchased all the gear we need for a mobile resource room. We are a rural county. It's hard for someone from Waynesville or wherever to get down to O&J. So we're going to put mobile resource room in the Career Center. We're going to put one out at Little Miami as well, just because that's pretty far out. We're going to start with those two. That gives our staff access to the kids. The kids can work on their resumes, all that stuff, right there in the mobile resource room. tears down and gets out of Joel's way, so he doesn't have any extra room over there. So, but we can tear it down and get it out of there. And it ensures that all our handoffs are warm. Everybody knows that terminology. You don't want to tell the kid, call this guy, because you probably just lost him. It's got to be warm handoffs. All right, in phase 3, Joel's made some moves at the Career Center this year, and it's time to really establish some good partnering employees. And we do want to focus on manufacturing because I think it's a high demand in this county, and I also know that if the kid gets finished with the high school version of advanced manufacturing and they want to go into adult and they remain eligible, we'll just pay that tuition. They can stay with that company. So we're really trying to get some partner companies in, and it's not so hard to do given the benefits to the company. We just got to get out there and sell it. And phase 4 is really just to gather data and try to replicate. I won't elaborate too much on that. All these pictures, by the way, are just from various NACO gatherings. This is in Chattanooga. We got to see the train the Reds used to come back and forth on. That was pretty cool. Pretty cool addition. So phase 4, we're in the middle of all this right now. Our goal this year is to get 20 eligible kids and follow them intently through all of this. Report back on it as much as we're allowed, and try to replicate this. Office hours are established, and we don't have any participants that are pregnant or parenting right now, but I've had many, many of them over the years. Tanya will be tagged in. There's no doubt about it, and it's good that we'll be prepared. From now on, when they're eligible, they also get information from Children's Services about the non-punitive side of that, so that they can understand it themselves and read it themselves, and she would be there to answer any questions. We need businesses. We needed a win. We submitted for an award through NACO, and we got it. And it's just, for me, I love these little tools with staff because you go back and you get to show them all this work you've been doing. I've been hounding you and working you, and look what you've done. So I got to use that myself back at my office. It pumps everybody up. It pulls everybody back to center. Remember the purpose of why we come to work every day. You need these once in a while. And for us, we can use this to go from company to company and say, listen, we think we have an idea. Are you willing to jump in here? We already have a few that are interested. So without these two and without our staff at OMJ, we couldn't have done this, but it was pretty cool to get to go to Tampa. I got to speak on the de-siloing concept that is really just second nature to us here in Warren County, but the breakout session after my little talk was the biggest one because it was wild to see people that are from other counties that are like, man, we're not allowed to even go into Children's Services. We're not even allowed to blah, blah, blah. How did you do this? And essentially I just said, I bragged about us here heavily, and then just basically said, you gotta just bring it to somebody in charge. It's tough, but I felt in a strange way down there in Tampa that I was giving advice to people. Felt a little bit of that imposter syndrome, I think, but we do it really well here, so it's easy to go out and brag about it. So that was quite an honor to go down there and be a part of that big, gigantic thing. And we got to see a great speaker, great lunch, and I was right back out of town there. But I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate the invite, and really it was a good time. And it was flattering to get to brag about the work we got to do. So thank you so much. Without you all letting us do this, none of this would be. So we do really appreciate that, and we all had lunch yesterday to go over this, and we wanted to keep this in here because it's always don't suck up. But the truth is that if we didn't have the freedom to be creative and to try new things and fail once in a while, I'm always going to get wins for this county nonstop. That's all I do. But there's going to be some misses from time to time. NACO helps us count those misses. It's really important. But again, without the freedom to do all of this, we wouldn't be able to help the kids. So, and if we can, our motto is simple. If we can help them identify passion, turn it into purpose, you're whistling Dixie. So I appreciate your time today, and thank you so much for letting us do this and then having us here to talk about it today.
And I noticed in your PowerPoint presentation, multiple times you said, we don't need any additional funding. So how much funding do you have and where does it come from?
CCMEP TANF I have 3 major funding streams over at OMJ. We owe adult dislocated worker, which we don't have the numbers for that this year, but around $300,000. And then the CCMEP TANF Youth has got, we split that a little bit with Easter Seals, but it's had its ebbs and flows. It should be around 400,000. Now, we never spend that, but in the past year, we've gotten closer than we've ever come to spending that. We've also started to spend a little TANF money from Human Services. All the kids in Maryhaven this summer are doing a work program through our office, and we're using that other TANF pot. That was 53,000, but again, we're not going to spend that this year. The idea here is to get these plans in place so that we know it down to the penny how to spend it. We have merged OMJ and economic development. So I've been working closely with Matt Schnipke, learning that side of all of this. I've always been on the human services side, and now I get to learn. They joke around, they call me the lousy capitalist, but the truth is that I just need to learn that side. So I've been working with Schnipke on that. And we have a few companies that are expanding that we think can take advantage of our on-the-job training, where we can reimburse a company half of a person's salary for 6 months of training. We do it at Mitsubishi right now, and we do it at another place that makes plaster parts. So all those funding streams come from state programs.
Through the feds.
Right.
Through the feds, they're federal
Right.
dollars.
They divvy it down to us through the state, but yes, it's a large federal TANF program. And the comprehensive case management employment program is relatively new. I'd say under 5 years old. Some of the metrics are still in base.
But on the $750,000 you identified, that goes for programs above what you've done for a very small subset of 11, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Our
mean, you're not-
caseload over there is massive.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so yeah, just on this program,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
I just wanna make sure we're not.
This is just targeting a specific population and saying, how can we serve these kids better? But it's not 750,000 for 11 kids.
Okay, so, yeah, I mean, number one, I appreciate Commissioner Jones, what you're doing. She is the subject matter expert in this, and I think we as a board, on a couple of different occasions, tried to empower her to some degree of saying, take what you're super, super good at and mold it into what all three of us at the board really have from a philosophical perspective of getting people off of government support. They need to be working. And it was very illuminating to me a few years ago when everybody was talking about, unemployment rate being so down and this, and we brought Director of Human Services over, and I asked, how many people are on unemployment in this county out of 250,000 people? I was literally shocked. It was like, what, 550 people or something ridiculously small.
It got less than 300 people at one point.
Wow. I mean, and it's like, how in the world are those people surviving if they're not on unemployment? And we know they're not working. They're just not. So then it's all of these other government programs, all the other rent subsidies, all the other things. And so there's a fine line of we as a society helping people that need that helping hand up versus making living off the government a way of life. I am not about that. People need to have gainful employment, period. So the program you're talking about is trying to get these really most at-risk kids that are kind of already in the system that are gonna have a lifetime of playing the system. How do you get those gainfully employed? One thing I would, I don't wanna say disagree with, but the way I look at like finding your passion, it sounds great. My passion was to be a professional baseball player. I didn't have the skill set. You have to find your skill set. What are you good at? And then monetize that and then be passionate about what you do. It's kind of the backwards way of, oh, well, I love animals or what, oh, okay, so you're gonna go, everyone's gonna be a vet tech, kind of a thing. No. So it's that, what are you good at? Oh, I'm good with working with my hands, or I can fix a motor, or I can draw, or I can do, things like that of trying to help young people identify, what are you actually good at? And then do you like it? That's the way I would maybe encourage you to think about those subjects. But anything we can do systemically to say, how can we get these young people that chances are they're gonna be on the government dime for a very long time, how do we get them gainfully employed? And if that means we as a society spend some money on them now to help them develop that skill set that they can translate into a career, that seems like a reasonable proposition to me, because again, my end goal is they need to be working, period.
Right, and that's where the work program comes in, because it's tough to say, but a lot of these kids in the TANF element don't have that example at home, so they don't even know what work ethic is. So that's kind of the tough part with partnering with work sites, is like, hey, you gotta be.
I get that, but then the response is, I don't have a work ethic, I don't wanna do this. So then we as a society continue just to give them a check.
Well, I agree with you there.
So-
And that's the whole point of this.
It's
trying to
too
show them.
easy not to work in a lot of cases now.
Understood, yeah, absolutely. And if we could show them some, I use passion and purpose as a way to grab their interest, honestly. But the truth is a lot of these kids don't dream beyond assistance. Their parents don't have any money. They've never had any money. So when all their friends are talking about, I'm gonna go to Bowling Green, I'm going up to Miami, they don't get to do that dream. They have to go Valvoline, I guess. So that's where we're stepping in and saying, here's $15,000 to dream with. That's the tuition cap. So then maybe they can start to identify some passion. And if they can, or skill set is a better term. And if they can do that and we can assist with that, allow them to dream enough to go pick somewhere to go to school, that gets them moving at least.
But are we trying to get them a 4-year degree where, okay,
No.
you can go be a philosophy major versus we need HVAC people, we need welders.
So that's what we're doing. So then
Absolutely.
it's like, hey, I love working with my hands. I want to be, okay, here's some programs where you're going to get to work with your hands and you're going to get to dig in and do the work, helping them kind of figure out which career path, and then developing those skills verified with the credential piece. So an employer says, hey, yes, we know this kid can come in and actually work on the following components. I think the other piece we're trying to do a better job at the Career Center is helping them understand what their path is. So it's not just, hey, get this credential and go get a job. Well, it's go get a job, but what are the other things you want to do? Do you eventually want to own your own company? Do you want to add other skill sets? So we're trying to get students now, if they complete HVAC, have you thought about coming back and doing electrical program? Because you're obviously going to need more understanding of the
Because
electrical
we know in the
components.
free market, HVAC companies, welding companies, machinists, bricklayers, plumbers, they're desperate
Yep.
for young people to enter those trades. And they can make pretty much immediately, you would know better than I,
Yeah.
30, 40, 50 bucks an hour doing that.
We have students that are on placement driving nicer cars than I am. I'm like,
So-
go back and do one of our
But
programs.
that's kind of, so if they have that desire of, hey, we are teeing it up, go do this, we're not every person has to go get a 4-year degree. They just don't. So then we're teeing it up to help an economic need for Warren County employers, and we're trying to systemically break this cycle of, my parents were on the government dime, I know how to play it. Our former administrator, Dave Gully, said one of the most insightful things to me. He said, dealing with the human services side of the equation for as long as he did, he said some of the smartest people he had ever met out in the economy were the people that were 100% dependent on the government. They knew every time they had to apply for something, they knew every program that was eligible, they knew how many times they had to go apply for a job. They had like a calendar of checking the boxes to where they could get every possible government check. And that's how they chose to use their skill set, was to live off of everyone else. I can't stand that. So it's like, how do we try to get people, again, out into the capitalist economy to be that cog in the wheel? But it's your cog. I mean, this is how we do it.
I think helping them understand, too many of them don't understand what the possibilities are. Because all they've heard for so long is you got to go to college and get a 4-year degree, and not understanding there are all these other possibilities, and you can still go get a degree. I mean, we have a lot of students who get into programs, make the money, and somebody else is paying for them to go back and get that degree. And so I think that's what we're really trying to understand too, is how can we at the Career Center partner with other people in the county to help get that information to students and families sooner, to be able to understand, because unless they have somebody who is in that career field or someone who's taken the time to share what the possibilities are, they don't necessarily hear that anymore. So
And we don't support anything that isn't in demand. That's an OMJ rule. So it has no 4-year degrees. We've done a couple where they're finishing a 4-year because they've done it a lot on their own. But really, it's in-demand jobs, which include all the maintenance stuff you're talking about, as well as everything in healthcare. We did a lot of CDLs last year. Those are the things we're really paying for. So when we pull them into our group here and try to help them, when I use terms like passion and dream, that's just because I love to see that for them. But ultimately, they're all going into those fields because that's what the Career Center trains them to do, and that's what we're allowed to pay for.
Right, the dream should be, do you want to own your own home?
Correct.
Do you want to pay for your kids to go to school? You know, that, you know, do you want to be self-sufficient? You want to take vacations? Those are the things just having gainful employment will do for you over a long period of time. I forget the study, but it's, if you do 3 things in life, it's like 85, 90%.
You graduate from high school, you do so without getting pregnant, and,
Don't go to prison.
yeah, you stay out of there, which,
Do those 3 things. I mean, and obviously for some folks that's harder, but it's like, man, do those 3 things. Just graduate from high school. Don't have a baby out of wedlock. And then, don't get arrested and go to jail. You do those 3 things. It's like 80 or 90% chance you're gonna be okay.
Very true. And we're here for the ones, I guess, that don't to hit all those wickets. Plenty of our kids are just as impacted as well. But again, we just figured we could collaborate outside of our silos and do more for them with.
Yeah, and we appreciate that, and hopefully I'm just trying to reinforce, you all 3 are important to the county, and I'm just, you know, I can only speak for myself. Philosophically, what are we trying to accomplish? And I like redirecting everyone, at least from my perspective. If I'm elected to represent the 250,000 people of Warren County, and we're your bosses, this is, at least from my perspective, what's important to us. Transitioning people from government assistance and dependency to independence. How do we do that?
Well, hopefully we'll have some good numbers for you soon. We're gonna kick this academic year off and see where it goes.
Thanks very much.
My pleasure.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
thanks for being here.
Oh, I'm
Pardon,
sorry,
anything?
what is it? No, I have nothing additional.
Nothing? Very good.
Okay, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
And yes.